Ishan Garg joins us from Brussels for more on this developing story. Ishan, what is at the heart of these protests in Poland?
Well, as we've just told our viewers, at the very heart of the farmers' protest in Poland is basically the idea that cheap imports from Ukraine are going to flood the European markets, and that's where the Polish farmers are most concerned about. They think that the value of their produce is going to drop down. Now, since Russia's war in Ukraine, the European Union had lifted most kinds of tariffs on Ukrainian imports, and what that meant was that last year there was a record high pileup of agricultural goods in Poland, which borders Ukraine. It shares a nearly 534-kilometer long border with Ukraine, and with a lot of the grains coming in through that country, the farmers there say they have had a hard time to get a decent price for their produce, and now they are complaining that these cheap imports are hurting their livelihoods, they're hurting their profits, and this is why they're asking their government to ensure that there should be some curbs at least on the imports of the Ukrainian goods, especially of sugar, of wheat and other items like that. And that's why they have now said that if their demands are not met, if certain kinds of restrictions are not imposed, they might even consider lengthening their protest up until April. We are already seeing the impact of this, as we just showed our viewers. There are long lines stretching at the borders. On some of the checkpoints, reports are suggesting that there is a wait time of up to 10 hours, which is making things very difficult for Ukraine to send items into Europe. But officials there say it's also making things difficult for Ukraine to get items from Europe in those empty trucks that would have made inside Ukraine. And Ukraine now says it's possibly even hurting its own defenses.
Now, we've seen similar protests at varying intervals elsewhere in Europe, in France, for instance, or even Spain. So are these protests all related to each other?
In some way, yes, they are, because one of the things that is common among all these protests is their anger against common EU-wide laws. Some of the laws that the farmers are most concerned about include the limits on the use of pesticides and insecticides, which is already something that the European Commission has watered down. Some of the regulations have been watered down to assuage the concerns of the farmers, but that has still not been enough for some of these farming groups. Now, analysts have said that the farmers in Europe are actually one of the most heavily subsidized in the entire world, but the farmers' organizations are saying that they need more support from the EU, and which is why we are seeing protests cropping up in various parts of the continent. The European Commission had also waived some of its restrictions on the farming sector for its environmental norms, but that has also not worked, and now officials saying that they are looking at working more with the farming communities and with the organizations to take a look at what can be done, potentially even including a hard brake mechanism on some of the Ukrainian imports that are coming in. But so far, all of these measures by the officials have not had the kind of impact they would hope on the concerns of the farmers.
Ishan, thank you. We leave it at that. That was Ishan Garg reporting from Brussels.